I had always imagined my baby shower would be the happiest day of my life, just 1 month away from finally holding my baby. But nothing prepared me for what was coming. Instead of joy, my own sister turned what should have been a celebration into a nightmare that I couldn't have foreseen. In front of everyone, Chloe, with a grin I'll never forget, raised her foot and kicked my 8-month pregnant belly. And my mother? She stood there, quiet, encouraging her with every silent second. I felt the betrayal of my own blood. The people who were supposed to protect me, my family, had turned into strangers. I collapsed to the floor, pain radiating through my body as I clutched my unborn child, terrified for his life. But what happened next, in that moment of chaos, would shatter everything I thought I knew about family. My name is Emily, and what happened to me that day is something I never imagined my own blood could be capable of. I live in Portland, Oregon, a city that from the outside seemed calm, even picturesque. I was married to Ryan, the kindest man I knew. 3 years of love, prayers, and hope had led to this moment. I was pregnant, and everything felt perfect. 8 months into my pregnancy, Ryan was my rock. Patient, kind, and endlessly supportive, he treated me like I was carrying the world inside me, and in a way, I was. Not everyone in my life shared the same joy. In my family, happiness was a threat. My mother, Eleanor, never truly saw me as her daughter. She always chose Chloe, the perfect one. Chloe, the golden child, the flawless one. A rising TikTok star with 500,000 followers, brand deals, and a picture-perfect life. She was everything my mother wished I could be. Beautiful, popular, flawless. Meanwhile, I was always the quiet, simple one, the disappointment, the one who couldn't measure up. Family gatherings were always filled with Eleanor's cutting comparisons. Look at Chloe, her success, her elegance. Why can't you be more like her? Her words stung, always a reminder of my place in the family. But this time, I had something Chloe didn't. Something she resented, deep down. I was about to become a mother. A few weeks ago, everything changed when the doctor found something during my 20-week ultrasound. Emily, there's a defect in the baby's diaphragm, congenital diaphragmatic hernia. We'll need to keep a close eye on lung development. His words haunted me every sleepless night. Ryan stayed strong, holding me through my silent tears. We'll get through this, he whispered, his voice the only thing keeping me grounded. Our baby is strong, and so are you. We decided not to tell my mother or Chloe. I knew their reaction would be nothing like comfort or love, only judgment. Their cruelty was something I wasn't ready to face while carrying this precious life inside me. Now, with just 1 month to go, my best friend Allison had organized the perfect baby shower to celebrate our little miracle. But as the day drew closer, an unease settled deep in my chest. A voice, quiet but persistent, warned me that something terrible was coming. I was about to discover the ugly depths of jealousy. The morning of my baby shower arrived under Portland's familiar gray sky. Everything looked calm on the surface, but my heart was anything but. Sitting by the nursery window, I gently rubbed my 8-month pregnant belly, feeling little Ethan kick inside me, his tiny movements like a quiet reassurance. Ryan entered with that familiar gentle smile, holding a tray with my favorite, blueberry pancakes and warm, caffeine-free tea, always so mindful of my condition. "Good morning, beautiful," he said softly, placing the tray on the nightstand, his eyes filled with concern as he tried to ease my nerves. I forced a smile, but it felt so fragile, my unease too heavy to conceal. "Today's your special day," he said, his voice warm. "Let's focus on you and Ethan." I tried to stay positive, but I couldn't help muttering, "I just hope they don't ruin it, Ryan." He knelt beside me, his hand resting gently on my belly, whispering, "They won't. I'll be right by your side, no matter what happens. You're not alone." His words comforted me, but the dread still lingered, a feeling I couldn't shake. As I got dressed, my phone buzzed with a message from my mother. "Wear something presentable, Emily. This is an important event." "This is an important event, Emily. Don't embarrass us again." Her words cut deep, as they always did. Moments later, a message from Allison popped up. "Don't worry about them, Emily. Everything's ready and beautiful. Today is your day." I clung to her words like a lifeline, holding on to the one piece of hope that today would be mine. I decided to wear the soft pink maternity dress Ryan had lovingly picked out for me. It wasn't extravagant, just simple and comforting. It wasn't designer or flashy, but it made me feel comfortable, safe, and most importantly, cherished. As I stood in front of the mirror, I whispered, "You've got this." On the way to the hotel where Allison had arranged everything, Ryan reached over and took my hand, squeezing it gently as he said, "We'll face them together." I managed a faint smile, whispering, "Thank you." On the way, I glanced at my phone and saw Chloe's latest TikTok video. There she was, posing in front of her luxury car, showing off a new designer handbag, perfect lighting, and flawless makeup. The comments flooded with praise. "Slaying as usual, queen. You're everything." While she chased fame and attention, I was preparing to welcome the child who meant everything to me into this world. My child. The one who meant the world to me. As we neared the hotel, my heart pounded. The weight in my chest wasn't just from the baby, but from the undeniable sense that today would be the day everything changed. As we arrived, Allison greeted us with a bright smile and warm hug, quickly leading us into the banquet room she'd meticulously decorated. The room was filled with soft pink and gold balloons floating above, and white tables draped in delicate, baby-themed decor. In the center of the room, a large banner read, "Welcome, baby Ethan." For a brief moment, the beauty of the setting eased my nerves, making everything feel almost perfect. Ryan whispered in my ear, "See? Everything's perfect, just like you deserve." Guests were already mingling, chatting, and approaching me with warm congratulations. Friends from work, Ryan's colleagues, and a few close neighbors had all gathered. They brought thoughtful gifts, kind words, and an atmosphere filled with real love and support. For a while, it really felt like this day could finally be about me and my baby. But beneath the joy, a weight still sat heavily in my chest, knowing my mother and Chloe hadn't arrived yet. I kept glancing at the doors, hoping their absence would last just a little longer. Ryan noticed my anxiety and squeezed my hand. "Forget about them. Today is about you and Ethan," he reassured me. Moments later, Allison grabbed the microphone, officially welcoming everyone. She smiled brightly, speaking warmly. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate Emily and Ryan as they await the arrival of baby Ethan. Today is about love, family, and the beautiful journey ahead." The guests raised their glasses in a toast, and for a moment, I allowed myself to soak in the applause and kind wishes. But the peace shattered when the doors swung open with a loud crash, instantly capturing everyone's attention. There stood Chloe in a shimmering designer gown, flashing her perfect smile as if she were arriving at a red carpet event, not her sister's baby shower. She strutted in confidently, her designer heels clicking against the floor, carrying her latest luxury handbag. "Sorry I'm late," she called out loudly, making sure everyone heard. "My brand shoot took longer than expected. You know how hectic it gets with sponsors and content schedules," she said with a grin, making sure the entire room heard her. Behind her, my mother, Eleanor, entered, her expression as cold as ever, dressed in flawless luxury. Her sharp gaze immediately scanned me from head to toe, her eyes cold and judgmental. Without hesitation, Eleanor launched her first subtle jab. "Emily, don't you think something a bit more elegant would have been appropriate for today? It's such a special occasion." My simple pink maternity dress, carefully chosen for comfort and love, suddenly felt exposed under her icy, judgmental stare. I forced a smile and replied, Thank you for coming, Mother. Chloe. Chloe scanned the room with a smug grin, her eyes flicking over the decorations and guests before she commented, "Well, that's cute. If it were me, I'd have gone a bit grander, but it's fine." The atmosphere shifted instantly. Guests exchanged uneasy glances, sensing the quiet but very real hostility coming from my own family. Allison leaned close, whispering in my ear, "Don't let them ruin this, Emily. Today is still about you." I nodded, but deep down I could feel the tension rising, knowing it was only just beginning. Chloe hadn't come to celebrate. No, she had something much darker planned, something none of us could see coming. As guests mingled, chatting and enjoying the afternoon, I carefully opened each gift, one by one, thanking everyone for their kind gestures. Tiny onesies, plush toys, soft blankets, and baby books were scattered across the table. For a few precious moments, it actually felt like a normal baby shower, full of warmth and love. But Chloe couldn't resist ruining every moment. Every time I unwrapped a gift, she would loudly announce, "Oh, I have something like that. But of course, mine's from a premium brand." Or she would glance at a guest and snidely comment, "Isn't that pattern a bit outdated?" I would have picked something more modern. Her words lingered in the air like poison, making many guests shift uncomfortably in their seats. My mother, Eleanor, made her rounds through the crowd, puffing up Chloe's ego with every word. "Chloe just landed another brand partnership," Eleanor bragged to anyone who would listen. "Her TikTok following is skyrocketing. She's almost at 1 million followers." It felt like this whole day was becoming about Chloe's success instead of celebrating my baby. I tried to tune them out, clinging to Ryan's steady presence beside me. Ryan stood by my side, his jaw clenched, watching everything unfold, but staying silent. For me. Then, just as the gift opening was wrapping up, and I started to feel some relief, Chloe suddenly stood up, forcing a bright, fake smile. "Before we cut the cake, I have a little announcement," she said, her voice too loud for comfort. The room fell silent, and every eye turned toward her, the atmosphere shifting again. A chill ran down my spine. Ryan immediately stepped closer, his protective instinct kicking in. Allison whispered urgently, "Chloe, don't do this, not here, please." But Chloe smiled wider and waved her off, as if dismissing Allison's concern. "Relax, Allison. This is something the family needs to hear." Ryan spoke firmly, his voice cold. "Chloe, stop it now." But Chloe had no intention of stopping. She reached into her designer bag, pulling out a manila envelope with dramatic flair. My heart sank as she slowly opened it, pulling out my ultrasound photo. My blood ran cold. "Where did you get that?" I whispered, my voice trembling. Chloe lifted the image higher, showing it to everyone in the room, her smile taunting. "Everyone, this is Emily's ultrasound. What she didn't tell you is that her baby has congenital diaphragmatic hernia. The doctors say there's a high risk of complications." The doctor said there's a high risk of complications. Gasps echoed through the room. My face burned with humiliation as countless eyes fixed on me, taking in the painful truth Chloe had just unveiled. Eleanor stepped forward, her voice cold and disgusted rather than filled with concern. "Is this true, Emily? Why would you hide something so serious from your own family?" Tears welled in my eyes. "Because it's private. It's between Ryan, my doctors, and me. We've been managing it." Eleanor's expression stiffened. "Managing it? You're planning to bring a child into this world with lifelong complications. That's not strength, that's foolishness." The weight of their cruelty crushed me. Ryan clenched his fists, his face turning red with fury, but he stayed by my side. Chloe stepped closer, her voice dripping with venom. "Let's face it, Emily, you're about to trap yourself with a disabled child. No life, no career, no freedom. Eventually, even Ryan will get tired of carrying your burden." I could barely hold back my tears, but I refused to break. "You're wrong," I said, my voice shaking. This child is a blessing. No matter what happens, we will love him, protect him. Chloe laughed coldly. A blessing? Please, this isn't a blessing. It's a defective product. At that moment, something inside me shattered. Don't you dare call my child defective, I shouted, my voice reverberating through the shocked silence. The only defects here are in your hearts. Chloe's face contorted with fury as she took a threatening step forward. You're pathetic, Emily, always playing the victim, pretending to be strong. No, Chloe, I answered, my voice rising. You're the one who's jealous. You can't stand that I have something you don't. Real happiness. Chloe's expression twisted with rage as she moved closer. I saw the flash in her eyes, the dangerous gleam right before she raised her leg. In that horrifying second, I knew something terrible was coming. In that moment of terror, Chloe's heel crashed into my swollen belly with brutal force. The pain was instant, sharp, and blinding. A scream tore through me as my legs gave out beneath me. I collapsed to the floor, clutching my belly, gasping for air as waves of pain shot through me. The room exploded into chaos. Guests screamed, some rushing forward, others frozen in shock. Chairs toppled over as people stumbled back, unable to process the horror they had just witnessed. Ryan's voice cut through the chaos as he sprinted toward me. His face was pale, eyes wide with terror. He dropped to his knees, lifting my head into his lap, my tears mixing with sweat as I whimpered in agony. It hurts, Ryan, in my stomach, I gasped, trying to breathe through the agonizing pain. I'm here, baby. I'm here, he whispered urgently, his voice shaking as he tried to stay calm. Help is on the way, hold on. Guests immediately crowded around Chloe, their voices trembling with fury and disbelief. What have you done? One woman screamed. You kicked a pregnant woman? Are you out of your mind? Chloe stood frozen, her face pale, but her eyes burned with defiance. She provoked me, she shouted, trying to justify the unjustifiable. She always plays the victim. That was the moment Ryan snapped. His eyes burned with fury I had never witnessed in him before. Gently placing my head on a pillow, one of the guests knelt beside me. He stood up and stormed toward Chloe with a controlled rage, the guests parting as he advanced. You kicked my pregnant wife, he shouted, his voice trembling with anger. She's carrying our child, and you attacked her like a monster. Without hesitation, Ryan raised his hand and slapped Chloe across the face with a force that echoed through the room. The sharp crack of the slap echoed through the silent hall as Chloe stumbled backward, clutching her cheek, her face frozen in disbelief. I'll never forgive you for this, Ryan growled, his voice low, filled with pure rage. Allison, shaking but composed, pulled out her phone and dialed 911 in a hurry. We need paramedics and police immediately. A pregnant woman's been assaulted. Please hurry. Her voice shook as she urgently gave our location. Moments later, the sound of sirens pierced the air, growing louder as they neared the hotel. The double doors swung open, and paramedics rushed in with a stretcher, followed by uniformed police officers. Where's the victim? A paramedic called out, scanning the room. Here, over here, Ryan shouted, never once letting go of my hand. The paramedics examined me carefully, checking my vitals and asking gentle questions as they prepared me for transport. She's in pain but stable for now. 8 months pregnant, abdominal trauma. We're moving her immediately, one of the paramedics stated. As they carefully lifted me onto the stretcher, I squeezed Ryan's hand tightly, refusing to let go. You're coming with me, I whispered weakly, my voice barely above a breath. I'm not leaving you for a second, he promised, climbing into the ambulance beside me. Meanwhile, the police officers approached Chloe, who stood trembling and panicked, her face a mask of fear. Chloe Miller, you're under arrest for aggravated assault on a pregnant woman, one officer declared firmly as he slapped handcuffs on her. Chloe's eyes widened, disbelief written all over her face. Please, this is a misunderstanding, she pleaded, her voice breaking. I didn't mean it, she begged. You kicked your pregnant sister. You'll explain that to the court. The officer's response was cold, unmoving. The officers then turned toward Eleanor, who had been standing there in stunned silence. Ma'am, you'll need to come with us for questioning. Multiple witnesses have identified you as encouraging and instigating the attack, one officer informed her, his voice flat. Eleanor opened her mouth to protest, but the weight of the situation settled on her face like a heavy burden. As both Chloe and Eleanor were led away, the paramedics carefully loaded me into the ambulance. Before the ambulance doors closed, I gathered the last of my strength to speak to one of the officers. Please press full charges, I said, my voice hoarse. I won't forgive them. The officer nodded firmly. Don't worry, ma'am, justice will be served. As the ambulance sped away through the night, Ryan held my hand tightly, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. For our son, Emily, we will fight this, Ryan whispered, his voice determined. I nodded through my tears and pain, my voice barely a whisper. We will. The ambulance sped through the streets of Portland, its sirens cutting through the dark night. Ryan sat by my side, gripping my hand like he was terrified to let go, even for a second. His voice was gentle but firm, trying to calm my trembling body. You're doing great, Emily. Ethan is strong. We're almost there, he reassured me, his voice steady. The pain pulsed through my abdomen, but Ryan's presence beside me kept me grounded, even in the midst of it. I focused on his voice, blocking out the terror, the betrayal, and the fear of what could happen to our unborn son. As we reached the hospital, a team of doctors and nurses, led by Dr. Parker, rushed to meet us. We've got her, one of the paramedics announced as they carefully transferred me to a hospital bed. Dr. Parker looked down at me with calm, reassuring eyes. Emily, we're going to take good care of you and your baby. Stay with us. You're both strong, he said, with a gentle smile. As the medical team worked fast, Ryan stood close by, his face pale, but his determination never wavered. Please save them both, he whispered, his voice cracking as they wheeled me into the examination room. Meanwhile, back at the banquet hall, the police were beginning their investigation. Detective Scott, a calm and experienced officer, took charge of the scene. Chloe sat there, handcuffed, her face streaked with tears, desperately trying to justify her actions. She provoked me. She always plays the victim, Chloe shouted, attempting to justify the unjustifiable. Detective Scott's voice was cold, unwavering in his professionalism. You deliberately kicked your pregnant sister in front of dozens of witnesses. That's felony aggravated assault. You will face the full consequences, he stated firmly. Eleanor tried to intervene, her voice sharp, but now tinged with desperation. Officer, this is being blown out of proportion. It's just a family misunderstanding, she protested. Detective Scott turned toward her, his expression unreadable. Ma'am, a violent felony against a pregnant woman is not a family issue. It's a criminal offense, he said, his tone unwavering. Based on multiple witness statements and evidence, you are being detained for conspiracy and incitement, he added. Allison stepped forward, her hands shaking as she handed her phone to the officers. I recorded everything, Allison said, her voice steady even though her eyes were filled with emotion. You can see it all, the assault, Eleanor's encouragement, everything, she said, her eyes unwavering. The officers examined the footage, confirming every brutal detail of Chloe's assault and Eleanor's cruel comments. Guests lined up to give statements, their testimonies overwhelming against both Chloe and Eleanor. As Chloe was escorted out of the hall, the reality of her actions started to sink in. The cameras that once adored her now captured her public downfall, flashing with the faces of reporters. This is ridiculous. I'm a public figure. Do you know how many followers I have? Chloe shouted, desperately trying to salvage her image. Detective Scott remained unfazed. You can discuss that with the judge. Eleanor, visibly shaken, was also escorted away for questioning. As the police car doors slammed shut, the once powerful mother-daughter duo now faced the beginning of their downfall. Back at the hospital, I lay in the examination room as Dr. Parker and his team worked quickly, running tests, ultrasounds, blood work, and fetal monitoring. Ryan sat by my side, never once letting go of my hand. After what felt like an eternity, Dr. Parker finally returned, his smile small but reassuring. "Emily, your baby is stable, his heart rate is strong, and there's no sign of internal damage or early labor. We'll keep you overnight for observation, but for now, both you and Ethan are safe." Relief flooded over me, and tears ran down my face, a wave of emotion I could barely control. Ryan kissed my forehead, his voice shaking as he whispered, "Thank God you're both safe." The physical pain still lingered, but the fear that had gripped my heart slowly began to fade. But lying there, I knew this was only the beginning of a much bigger battle, one I was now fully ready to face. The morning sunlight filtered softly into the room as I slowly opened my eyes, still sore, but grateful to feel Ryan's steady hand wrapped around mine. His tired eyes met mine instantly, and his face softened, a smile of relief spreading across it. "You're awake," he whispered, leaning down to kiss my forehead gently. "Ethan is okay. You're both safe," he reassured me. I exhaled deeply, tears welling up as I whispered, "Thank God." The weight that had pressed on my chest since the attack finally eased, even if just a little. A short while later, Dr. Parker entered, his expression calm and reassuring. "Emily, you and Ethan have made it through the hardest part. All your tests are stable, and the baby's development is on track. The trauma could have caused serious complications, but you were incredibly lucky." His words washed over me like a wave of relief, and I smiled faintly, whispering, "Thank you, Doctor." Ryan gently placed his hand over mine, grounding me. "You were incredible, Emily. You never gave up," he said softly, pride in his voice. As I rested, there was a soft knock at the door, and a composed woman walked in with confident steps and kind eyes. "Mrs. Emily Miller," she introduced herself. "I'm Rebecca Ethan, the district attorney handling your case. I'm terribly sorry for everything you've endured, but I want you to know we're moving forward quickly with the charges." Ryan stood, shaking her hand firmly, his voice steady but emotional. "Thank you for coming, Miss Ethan," he said, his voice firm but filled with emotion. Rebecca continued, "The evidence against your sister and mother is overwhelming. Chloe is being charged with felony aggravated assault on a pregnant woman, along with illegal access to private medical records. Eleanor is facing conspiracy and incitement charges. Between the video recordings, multiple witness statements, and your medical records, we have a strong case." I nodded, my voice trembling but resolute. "I want them held fully accountable. I've forgiven them too many times before. This time, I won't." Rebecca smiled respectfully. "And you shouldn't. This is no longer just a family matter, it's a criminal case, and the law will handle it. You'll be called to testify, but the state is fully backing you." Ryan squeezed my hand gently, grounding me with his unwavering strength. "We'll do whatever it takes," he said, his voice unwavering. Rebecca continued, outlining the legal process and timeline for the trial, assuring us that a restraining order was already in place to prevent Chloe and Eleanor from having any contact with me or the baby during the rest of my pregnancy and beyond. As the sun set that evening, I lay there, watching Ethan's heartbeat on the monitor beside me, feeling every tiny kick that reminded me of the life I was fighting so hard for. The fear and pain that had once consumed me were now replaced by a quiet, unshakable strength. I whispered softly to my son, "You're safe, little one, and I promise I'll protect you with everything I have." Ryan leaned in, kissed my forehead gently, and whispered, "We're in this together, Emily. every single step. For the first time in weeks, I closed my eyes and drifted off to sleep, not burdened by fear, but carried by hope. 3 weeks later, I stood outside the courthouse, my heart pounding as Ryan gripped my hand tightly. Allison stood by my side, her presence a calming reassurance. The media buzzed with attention, and cameras flashed as we entered the courtroom. Inside, Chloe sat at the defense table, her carefully curated image now shattered beyond repair. The flawless TikTok star, who once flaunted her perfect life, now looked completely broken, stripped of her designer glow. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her face pale and completely exposed. Behind her sat Eleanor, her usual coldness now stiffened with silent humiliation. Judge Whitaker entered and called the court to order. The charges were read aloud, echoing through the hushed courtroom. Felony aggravated assault against a pregnant woman, illegal access to private medical records, conspiracy, and incitement. Rebecca Ethan stood at the prosecution table, her voice calm, but piercing with conviction. She presented the case with sharp clarity, outlining how Chloe not only assaulted me, but also illegally accessed my private medical records, violating federal laws. She spoke of how Eleanor actively encouraged the humiliation, fostering an environment of cruelty rather than offering support. The defense tried to paint Chloe as emotionally unstable, overwhelmed by infertility struggles, financial problems, and a failing marriage. But Rebecca remained composed, exposing Chloe's calculated jealousy. Years of failed IVF treatments, mounting debt hidden behind her glamorous TikTok facade, and a simmering resentment that exploded when I became pregnant. Infertility is heartbreaking, Rebecca stated firmly, but it never justifies violence against another person, especially against a sister carrying an innocent life. It's my turn to testify, I said, sitting in the witness chair. I looked directly at Chloe, but she avoided my gaze, her eyes filled with guilt. My voice shook as I began, but with each word I found my strength, my voice growing firmer. I never imagined my own sister would physically attack me or put my child's life in danger. She stole my medical records to humiliate me, to shame my baby, and my mother, instead of protecting me, stood by and encouraged it. My son is not a burden. He's a blessing. Despite everything they did, they couldn't break me. The room fell into a deep silence as I finished, my words hanging in the air. Allison stepped up next, presenting her video recording as undeniable evidence. Every cruel word, every insult, every movement of Chloe's attack was captured on tape. Dr. Parker took the stand, outlining the severe medical risks Chloe's violent attack had placed on both my life and Ethan. It's a miracle no permanent damage was done, he said, his voice steady but filled with gravity. But the danger she inflicted was very real, he added, his eyes locking with mine. After all the testimonies and closing arguments, Judge Whitaker stood, his voice solemn as he delivered the verdict. The court recognizes the severity of these crimes and the deliberate cruelty involved, he said. Justice demands full accountability, he continued. Chloe was sentenced to 3 years in state prison, with no parole for the first 2 years, followed by mandatory anger management and community service. As for Eleanor, she was sentenced to 1 year suspended, with 3 years of probation, mandatory counseling, and community service. Chloe broke down in sobs as the sentence was read aloud. Eleanor, however, sat frozen, her carefully constructed world crumbling to dust. Ryan wrapped his arm around me, his warmth a comfort as we stepped out of the courtroom into the bright Portland sunlight. "It's over," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "They can't hurt us anymore." I looked up at the sky, breathing deeply, and whispered, "This is just the beginning." 1 week after the sentencing, in the soft stillness of a Portland morning, the moment I had been waiting for finally arrived. A deep pressure surged through my abdomen. I knew it wasn't a false alarm this time. "Ryan," I called out, my voice trembling but steady. He rushed in immediately, his eyes wide with a mix of excitement and concern. "It's time," I nodded, gripping his hand tightly as another wave of contractions clenched my stomach. Without hesitation, Ryan helped me into the car, his voice calm, even though his hands trembled slightly. "You're doing great, Emily. We're almost there," he reassured me, his voice full of warmth. The hospital staff was ready, having been closely monitoring my pregnancy since the attack. Dr. Parker was waiting for us at the entrance, his smile reassuring. "All right, Emily, let's bring Ethan into this world safely," he said. The labor was long and exhausting, but Ryan stayed by my side the entire time. His constant words of encouragement kept me going through every painful contraction. "You're stronger than you think. You fought so much already. Ethan is almost here," he whispered, his voice filled with admiration. Finally, with one last push, the room was filled with the sweetest sound I had ever heard, the strong, clear cry of my baby boy. Dr. Parker held him up proudly and declared, "He's here." Tears flooded my eyes as they placed Ethan gently on my chest. His tiny body was warm against me, his little fingers curling around my skin as he took his first breaths. Ryan's voice cracked with emotion as he whispered, "You did it, Emily. He's perfect." The overwhelming relief and joy filled my heart completely. In that moment, every pain, every betrayal, every tear seemed to vanish. All that mattered was this tiny miracle, resting peacefully in my arms. Days later, we brought Ethan home, surrounded by those who had supported us through the storm. Allison came by, bringing balloons and flowers, her eyes filled with happy tears. Rebecca Ethan, the prosecutor, stopped by with a small gift, her firm voice now softened with warmth. Dr. Parker also visited, gently checking on Ethan and offering quiet congratulations. As we gathered in the living room, laughter replaced the sorrow that had once consumed us. Allison spoke gently. "You really should share your story, Emily. You've already inspired so many." I smiled softly and replied, "I've already started writing. A mother's strength. I want other women to know they can survive too." Ryan squeezed my hand, his pride evident, as we looked around at the small, beautiful circle of people who had become our true family. That night, standing by the nursery window, I gently rocked Ethan, his tiny body resting against my chest as he slept. The cool Portland breeze whispered through the open window, and I softly spoke to my son, my voice barely a whisper. "You were born to be loved, and you'll always be surrounded by people who truly care for you. Family isn't just blood, it's the ones who stand beside you through the darkest nights." Ryan walked in quietly, his arms wrapping around both of us. "We made it," he whispered, his voice filled with relief. "And this is just the beginning." I smiled through my tears, gazing down at Ethan's peaceful face, and whispered, "We survived, we conquered, and now we finally live." If you've enjoyed this emotional story, make sure to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more powerful, inspiring stories. Thank you for watching and supporting us.